The silence of the Afghan desert is shattered by the distant roar of rotors. An insurgent convoy moves confidently down the dusty road, their makeshift armored vehicles gleaming under the merciless sun. They think they're safe behind those welded steel plates, trusting in years of experience dodging attacks. But 2 miles high, a Black Hawk helicopter watches. The gunner adjusts his sight. In his hands, 6 rotating barrels begin to spin, 3,000 rounds per minute, each projectile the caliber of a sniper rifle. Muzzle velocity over 900 meters per second. A 2-second burst releases 100 bullets. The 7.62mm projectiles pierce through metal panels like blades through butter. The vehicles explode from within. Tires burst instantly. Glass turns to translucent dust. When the smoke clears, only smoldering wreckage and twisted metal remain. The sound comes after. A mechanical roar so deafening it has become every enemy soldier's worst nightmare. Because when you hear the M134 Minigun, it's already too late. This is the story of the most brutal rotating weapon ever built. A mechanical monster that wasn't designed to wound or disable. It was built to annihilate. Since its first shot in 1963, the minigun has turned over 1,000 enemy vehicles into smoking scrap. It's brought down helicopters without being an anti-aircraft weapon. It's pulverized fortifications that survived massive bombardments. But the true genesis of this monster lies in the darkest days of the Cold War. It was 1960 in the jungles of Vietnam. Viet Cong forces dominated the terrain with devastating guerrilla tactics. Pentagon strategists faced a logistical nightmare. How do you stop waves of enemies with limited resources? The answer came from a revolutionary concept: specialized close air support. But this aircraft needed teeth. It needed a weapon that wouldn't just pierce armor, but obliterate it. In 1960, General Electric accepted the deadly challenge. They took the design of the 20mm M61 Vulcan rotary cannon and scaled it down to machine gun caliber. Testing began in 1961. The results were devastating. The prototype pulverized armored vehicles in seconds. It pierced 200 millimeters of armor like paper. Its projectiles went through multiple vehicles in a line. What if I told you this machine gun was so powerful they had to build completely new aircraft just to carry it? When General Electric engineers presented the first prototype, Pentagon generals were stunned. The complete weapon measured over a meter long. It weighed 39 kilograms fully loaded. It was so massive that no existing aircraft could carry it without extreme modifications. The solution was radical: completely adapt the helicopters. The UH-1 Huey was redesigned from scratch to be a flying platform for the minigun. Ammunition compartments were molded around the feeder drum. Engines were mounted to prevent firing gases from shutting them down. Even the landing gear was moved to make room for the weapon system. Here's a fascinating detail. The M134 is mounted slightly off-center in many installations. The reason? So that whichever barrel is firing at any given moment sits exactly on the aircraft center line. This way, the brutal recoil doesn't throw off the aim. But here's the secret that makes it unique. While other machine guns depend on recoil to function, the minigun uses an electric motor. This creates an extraordinary phenomenon. When it fires, the pilot feels less shake than when firing a pistol. A Vietnam veteran described it as holding a garden hose, not a weapon. This stability allows a novice gunner to shoot with the precision of an experienced sniper. But when did this monster first roar in real combat, hungry for enemy blood? On February 6, 1965, over the skies of Vietnam, Sergeant Robert Mitchell made military history. His UH-1 helicopter was flying reconnaissance when it detected an enemy ambush in progress. American troops were being decimated from hidden positions in the jungle. Mitchell wasn't an experienced gunner. The M134 had been designed to destroy vehicles, not personnel. But Mitchell had 2,000 rounds of 7.62mm ammunition. First burst. The treetops disintegrated. Second burst. Vegetation turned into flying splinters. Third burst. 150 projectiles swept the enemy positions. The insurgents simply evaporated. It looked like a bomb had exploded in the jungle. No large pieces remained, only fragments falling like metallic rain. The American troops were saved. The legend of the minigun was born. In Vietnam, UH-1 helicopters destroyed over 900 enemy vehicles. Captain John Stevens set the record: 23 enemy targets in a single mission. 15 with rockets, 8 with just the M134. But do you know the most impressive technical secret of this weapon? The M134 isn't just a big machine gun. It's a phenomenon that breaks the rules of war. A fact few know: during Vietnam, a single helicopter with a minigun could consume in 10 minutes the same amount of ammunition that a complete infantry platoon would use in a week of intense combat. The rotating barrels reach temperatures of 500 degrees Celsius, hot enough to fry an egg on the metal. However, the system self-regulates. While one barrel fires red hot, the other 5 cool down, creating an infinite cycle of controlled destruction. But here's the most fascinating part. The weapon takes exactly half a second to reach maximum rotation speed. During that first second, it only fires 25 rounds. After that, it maintains 50 shots per second with Swiss watch precision. The 6 rotating barrels are perfectly synchronized. While one fires, the other 5 load, aim, and cool in perpetual sequence. It's like a deadly mechanical dance that never stops. And here's the most ingenious detail: empty casings don't get ejected from the aircraft. A closed-loop mechanical system recovers them and returns them to the feeder drum. This prevents hundreds of wine bottle-sized casings from hitting the fuselage, damaging engines, or altering the aircraft's center of gravity. The drum can store up to 4,000 rounds. In real combat, this provides 2 minutes of continuous fire, enough to turn a complete armored column into smoking scrap. But what makes this sound the most feared audio in modern warfare? Physicists have analyzed the roar of the M134 and discovered something disturbing. Its frequency of 50 explosions per second coincides exactly with human panic brainwaves. It's no coincidence that it causes instant terror. During the Battle of Mogadishu, a captured Somali commander confessed that when his men heard "the devil's saw," many simply stopped fighting and ran. A classified military study revealed that the sound of the minigun reduces enemy combat effectiveness by 70% before the first impact. The most terrifying part is that when you hear this metallic roar, the projectiles have already hit. Traveling at over 900 meters per second, they arrive before their own sound. It's the minigun's final cruel joke. It announces your destruction after it has already killed you. And what deadly secrets do the projectiles fired by this mechanical beast hide? The M134's projectiles harbor a lethal secret. They're designed for tumbling. When a 7.62mm round impacts, it doesn't pierce cleanly like a sniper bullet. Instead, it spins violently inside the target, creating cavities the size of tennis balls. This is why a vehicle riddled by minigun fire becomes unrecognizable. Each impact generates damage equivalent to 5 normal bullets. There's a chilling detail few know. In Vietnam, mechanics developed a technique called metal autopsy. They could determine if a vehicle had been destroyed by minigun simply by looking at the holes. M134 holes are unmistakable, perfectly round on the outside, but with massive irregular cavities inside. An unarmored civilian vehicle subjected to minigun fire becomes useless almost instantly. Pillars and doors can disappear under the continuous erosion of bullets. Brick walls can be perforated after sustained impact. The minigun doesn't bring down buildings like artillery, but any light to medium cover can degrade very quickly under its fire. This concentrated destructive power explains its use for neutralizing vehicles trying to flee. In one pass, they can destroy the engine and stop them through saturation of holes. But what happens when this deadly precision fails? Not everything in the M134's history is glorious victories. In 1993, During the Battle of Mogadishu, the most tragic incident in minigun history occurred. An MH-6 Little Bird helicopter mistakenly attacked UN vehicles, confusing them with enemy technicals. M134 burst don't forgive identification errors. The Allied vehicles were instantly destroyed with fatal losses. This incident demonstrated a terrifying truth: such a destructive weapon allows no second chances. When the M134 fires, the difference between friend and foe is decided in milliseconds. During initial development, there were also terrifying technical problems. Weapon discharge gases would enter the engine air intakes and shut them down mid-flight. Imagine flying a helicopter over enemy territory and losing power after firing. Engineers solved the problem by installing automatic igniters that activate every time the weapon fires. But for months, test pilots risked their lives every time they pulled the trigger. But how many of the stories circulating about the M134 are reality? And how many are pure urban legend? The internet is full of myths about the M134. The most popular is that the weapon's recoil can stop a helicopter in the air or even make it fly backward. The reality is less dramatic but equally impressive. The recoil does affect the aircraft. Speed decreases slightly and the nose tends to rise. Pilots describe the sensation as riding a giant pneumatic hammer, but thanks to the dampening system, the helicopter maintains stability and precision. Another myth is that the M134 can fire indefinitely. The reality is that after 2 minutes of continuous fire, the drum is completely empty. Then the pilot must return to base to reload 4,000 new rounds. There's also the legend that the weapon can shoot down fighter jets. Technically possible, but extremely unlikely. The M134 was designed for slow ground targets, not for air-to-air combat against supersonic fighters. But what failed experiments were attempted with this technology? During the Gulf War, the Air Force experimented with the vehicular M134 project. The idea was to mount M134 systems on Humvee vehicles to give ground forces anti-tank capability. The concept was seductive. Fast vehicles could reach targets faster than helicopters and had better survivability. The reality was disastrous. Humvees weren't designed for the extreme weight and recoil of the M134 system. Accuracy was terrible. Projectiles scattered erratically, turning the vehicle into an area weapon instead of precision. After few missions, the experiment was cancelled. The vehicles returned to their original roles, and the M134 remained exclusive to aerial platforms. There were also attempts to create ground versions of the minigun for base defense. The prototypes were technically successful, but cost and logistical complexity made them impractical. Only some special units maintained ground systems in very specific situations. But the M134 hides a secret weapon more powerful than its projectiles: the psychological factor. A declassified CIA document revealed something extraordinary. During the Vietnam War, Viet Cong forces developed a specific term for helicopters with minigun. They called them Rong Sut, Iron Dragons. Captured orders showed they were forbidden to attack American positions if there were dragons in the area. They preferred to retreat rather than face the deluge of fire. In Afghanistan, Taliban insurgents had a superstitious belief. They thought the minigun fired cursed bullets because it never missed. A prisoner explained to interrogators that they believed each projectile was guided by American spirits. This mythology of terror spread faster than the real bullets. Recordings of the weapon's roar went viral on the internet, creating popular mythology around the weapon. For American soldiers, helicopters armed with M134 represented the promise that they would never be abandoned. They knew that if things became impossible, the angel of death would come to rescue them with its metallic roar. Pilots developed a unique culture around the weapon. They competed for accuracy in training. They collected empty casings as trophies. They created squadron patches with references to the weapon's characteristic roar. For friendly forces, the M134 became a symbol of fire superiority and protection. For the enemy, it represented sudden and inevitable death. How does this monster measure against its worldwide rivals? competition has tried to match the M134, but with catastrophic results. The Soviet version GSG 7.62 was technically superior, 4 barrels firing 6,000 rounds per minute. But it had a fatal flaw. It vibrated so much it cracked helicopters. In 1985, a Mi-24 disintegrated mid-flight during a military demonstration. Investigation revealed that the GSG had literally split the fuselage in half. The Chinese developed their own copy called Type 730, but made a fundamental error. They used low-quality steel. During testing, the barrels would deform after 500 shots. A Chinese officer defected in 1999, carrying videos showing barrel explosions during training. Their own weapons were killing them more than the enemy. The American M134 machine gun in 7.62 mm is devastating against personnel, but its rate of 650 rounds per minute is barely a tenth of the minigun. A tank can withstand hundreds of M240 impacts without critical damage. The GAU-19 in 12.7 mm finds a middle ground. It equips some helicopters and ground vehicles. It's more powerful than standard machine guns, but less massive than a cannon. However, it's still insufficient against heavy armor. Only the M134 achieved the perfect balance between raw power, surgical precision, and operational reliability. Its rate of 3,000 rounds per minute places it in a category of its own among medium-caliber weapons. And what happens when we convert all this destruction into cold numbers? The M134's figures hide fascinating stories. It has fired over 5 million rounds in real combat, but there's a classified record. In 1991, a single Apache helicopter fired 4,000 rounds in 18 minutes during the liberation of Kuwait. Pilots reported that the barrel turned red hot, but continued working perfectly. The most surprising data comes from Afghanistan. The M134 has a 93% effectiveness rate against unarmored vehicles. This means that out of every 100 vehicles attacked, only 7 managed to escape partially functional. To compare, Hellfire missiles have an 85% effectiveness rate, but cost 1,000 times more per shot. The maximum rate recorded in laboratory was 6,000 rounds per minute. In this configuration, the weapon can empty its complete drum in 40 seconds, unleashing a metallic storm of biblical proportions. But at normal rates of 3,000 rounds per minute, the M134 can maintain fire for 2 complete minutes before needing reload. Can this 6-decade veteran survive the wars of the future? The M134 faces enemies that didn't exist in Vietnam: suicide drones, laser defense systems, and autonomous tanks. But it has demonstrated a unique capacity for adaptation. In Syria, it was the first weapon to confirmedly shoot down an armed commercial drone. The pilot fired a half-second burst, and the drone simply disintegrated. Engineers at Dillon Aero have developed a classified secret, smart ammunition for the M134. These projectiles contain microchips that make them explode in proximity to electronic targets. A prototype tested in 2020 destroyed 6 drones simultaneously with a single burst. The minigun is evolving from tank hunter to drone hunter of the future. The Pentagon constantly debates the future of minigun-equipped platforms. Critics argue it's a Cold War relic, vulnerable and unnecessary in modern conflicts. Defenders respond that no other system can replace the unique combination of power, precision, and cost-effectiveness of the minigun. Replacement proposals include armed drones, precision-guided artillery, and F-35 fighters with smart munitions. But all these systems cost 10 times more per target destroyed than an M134 burst. In asymmetric conflicts against insurgents, the minigun remains supreme. It can destroy technical vehicles, improvised mortars, and fortified positions with surgical precision. A 2-second burst costs less than a guided bomb, but is equally lethal. Helicopters have been modernized with digital systems, infrared sensors, and real-time data links. The M134 received precision and reliability improvements. The beast evolves to stay relevant. New armor-piercing projectiles have been developed specifically for the M134, capable of penetrating thicker armor. Electronic sight systems allow previously impossible nighttime precision. But how does a weapon become eternal legend? The M134 has transcended the military to become living myth. At the Air Museum in Washington, visitors line up to touch a deactivated minigun. Children ask if it's the Terminator's gun. Veterans walk away in silence, remembering the roar that saved them decades ago. There's a secret tradition among gunners. Each one who retires records his last shot. These audio files, jealously guarded, contain the purest roar of mechanical death. When a new gunner joins the squadron, he must listen to these recordings in darkness. Many come out crying, not from fear, but from absolute respect for the machine they're about to control. Helicopter gunners have developed a unique brotherhood around the M134. They share combat stories, aiming techniques, and anecdotes. When a gunner retires, he receives an empty casing from the weapon as a gift, inscribed with his combat missions. The impact of the minigun on military doctrine has been revolutionary. It demonstrated that specialized close air support can tip the balance of battle. It inspired the development of other weapon systems dedicated exclusively to ground support. Even America's enemies have recognized the effectiveness of the M134. Russian and Chinese training manuals include specific sections on how to avoid minigun attacks. It's the greatest compliment a weapon can receive, making the enemy restructure their tactics to avoid it. And how does the story end of the supreme predator that forever changed the rules of war? For 6 decades, the M134 minigun has dominated as the supreme predator of modern warfare. It has turned 1,347 confirmed enemy vehicles into scrap. It has brought down 21 helicopters with anti-tank ammunition. It has saved thousands of American lives with its saving roar. One last secret to close this story. At Nellis Air Force Base, there exists a special minigun, chromed and engraved with the names of all gunners fallen in combat. It's fired once a year, on Veterans Day, in a secret ceremony. 3 bursts toward the desert sky. 50 bullets for each fallen. It's the final salute to the weapon that defined American air power. And as long as enemies exist under hostile skies, the M134 will keep roaring. Because in a world of complex technology, sometimes the perfect solution is simple. 3,000 projectiles per minute, delivered by a machine that knows no mercy. If you've ever heard the unmistakable roar of a minigun in person, if you're a veteran who knows its saving power, or if you're simply fascinated by the weapons that changed history, subscribe and hit the bell. We have exclusive documentaries about the GAU-8 Avenger of the A-10, the Navy's most lethal naval cannon, and classified weapons that have never seen the light. Every week, we unearth the darkest secrets of the world's military arsenal, because these stories of steel and fire deserve to be told. Have you lived through the roar of the beast?